Now, early today, I mentioned that I'd be coming down to the floor to talk about our troop basing in Germany. I think a lot of us know, those of us on the committee know that we've been working on this for a long time. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper was put something together where he was going around and reevaluating our troop and asset distribution around the world. And I know that I disagreed with some of the things that he came up with. Africa, for example, was an area, that's an area where they're starting to have some very, very serious problems. And so if anything, it's going to end up taking more activity. But with along with other members, I'll be receiving detailed briefings from the Department of Defense on plans to carry out the President's decision in the coming days and weeks. But based on my conversation with Secretary Esper and the briefings I've received so far, the goal is to optimize our force posture in Europe, in part by moving some of our forces along NATO's eastern flank. It's always been in Western Europe. And so going forward, as I think about the plan to realign the posture in Europe, I'm thinking about the three guiding principles that I call the 3 F's. First, the forward presence, maintaining a strong presence in Europe that gives our troops what they need to deter Russia and, if necessary, to fight and win and defeat Russia. And I like the idea of rational rotation of forces in Southeast Europe. The second one is force protection. And really, force projection is more accurate. It's keeping strong, established bases for staging, air capacity, and more that we have, for example, in Ramstein Air Force Base, and we have invested quite a lot of money, and that is going to work for any future use and readjustments that take place in Europe. What I'm saying is a lot of things are going to be going on in Europe that are going to be enhancing as opposed to be transferred. And the third is families. Now, this is kind of interesting. In Tinker Air Force Base, there's a young lady who is the wife of a worker at Tinker Air Force Base. Her name is Jana Driver. She came to me. This was 2 years ago. And she said, we got a problem out at Tinker. When we privatized our housing, it worked out fine for a long period of time, but then it seemed to be that people got greedy and the housing, and they talked about the deplorable conditions of housing. I thought, my gosh, this is in my state of Oklahoma. Thank goodness it's just in one military establishment. Then I found out it was in all 5 of our military establishments. Then I found out it wasn't just in Oklahoma, it was around the world. Around the world. And so this is something that's very significant because when you look at the problems that have, so many people, and I'll be addressing this with a little more detail in a minute because of an amendment that's going to be before us tomorrow, and that is that we do something different than other countries do. I've heard over and over again, I'm sure the chair has also heard, we talk about all the money that we spend on defense in the United States, and yet we spend more money than Russia and China. There's our strategic opposition out there. Russia and China spend put together. Well, that's true, because the most expensive part of the military is the people, and people don't understand that. We want housing. We want to make sure there's schools for the kids. We want to make sure all these things are going on, and that's what costs the money, and that's the reason. If you're in a communist country, they give you a gun and say go out and kill people, and the problem's solved. So we are concerned about our families. They make a lot of sacrifices. Every few years, our families have to change locations. Their kids have to change schools. They have to they move to another area. Then if the spouse has a job, they have to try to get a job. And by the way, in this bill, we have some help so that we get relief from some of the regulations that normally take a long period of time, so spouses are able to get a job on a new location. That's something that a lot of people are not aware of is in this great bill that we have. They have to change hometowns, they change houses, they change doctors, their kids change schools, and of course they live with the reality that their service member is putting the life on the line to defend our country. And we've got to be grateful and never take sacrifice for granted. And that's why in everything we do, we should be trying to ease the burden of our military families. So when it comes to this plan that we're talking about, this is changing the forces around, primarily in Europe. That's what you hear more about. It's important that we do this right, and we do it right away. It's going to take some time to do, but we need to get started. Now, the reason I'm really excited about this program is that this is not something new. Some people might, if you have good memories, you might remember that back when General Jim Jones was the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, and at that time, I'd gone to him and said, you know, one thing that we really need to be doing is to start readjusting where we have our troops. At that time, we had a lot of troops, as we do today, in Germany, and a lot of training was taking place. But because of the environmental movement in Germany, they were giving us restrictions, saying you can only train with live ordnance maybe every 4 days a week and not past sunset and all of that. And so we're thinking, you know, we are really doing a great thing for Germany. It's stationing all of our people over there and all the money they spend and all of that. And yet they're not really trying to help us. And then we did some surveying. And this is kind of funny because John Bonzo, the one who's my staff director of our committee on the Republican side, he and I went over to the different countries, Bulgaria, Poland, different countries in that part of the world, and said, in the eastern part of Europe, are you willing to help us out? And they said, not only can you use your ordinance as much as you want, but at the same time, we'll help billet you and all that. So the program was good, and it was strongly supported by General Jim Jones at that time. And we did all we could to put that together, and we were visiting our allies about it, and we already had Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Romania lined up, and the things that they called that the lily pad approach to basing. And it was something that would work. I mean, it's no reason not to do it, but unfortunately, President Bush decided he didn't want to do it. And so we were unsuccessful in getting that done. So I've been fighting with that, with other presidents since that time. I've not gotten any of them to really look at that and the great values that would make for us. So anyway, that's something that's taking place right now. And we don't know, we're going to get a member briefing tomorrow that's going to give us a lot of details on what's going to happen, what the president is proposing in that area of Europe. Now, I want to